Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big Missouri welcome to our guest speaker at the prayer breakfast this year, Josh Smith.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, what an honor. Governor, thank you for the invitation to do this. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and now your wife, Claudia. Can you indulge me just for a few moments? If you are somebody in here that has had a family member in jail or prison, I know that's not something we generally talk about in circles like this, but if you have had a family member or somebody in your family affected by jail or prison, can you stand for a moment for me, please? If you are somebody in here that has had a friend, somebody you've known well, somebody you have been in relationship with, and that they've ended up in jail or prison, can you please stand? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I want to give you just a few statistics, because frankly, prison and our correctional system doesn't get talked about too much. The biggest reason it doesn't get talked about much is because most don't understand it. People violate society, and what do we want? We want them to pay the consequences of that. We want them to be separated from us in society, and we just want to feel safe, right? And so many of us don't think about what happens past that. That's the first thing we care about. We want to be safe. Let me give you a few statistics. I better put my spectacles on so I can really see these, or I might mess them up. There's a university study, 32.8% of children with incarcerated parents, approximately 1 in 3, end up in prison themselves. So think about that. That child, that innocent child that's coming through, but that ends up being in that home. 1 in 3 end up in prison themselves. Although U.S. compromises only 5% of the world's population, it accounts for roughly 25% of the world's prison population, obviously making it the highest globally. Let's talk about Missouri right here in your state. You have 24,000 people right now in the prison system. You've got over 50,000 on probation and parole. You have 19 prisons. You have over 10,000 staff members working those prisons in the Missouri Department of Corrections. And I want to tell you, as Mike said a minute ago, I've been able to work with your Missouri Department of Corrections over the last couple of years. You guys were crazy enough to bring on this lady named Ann Precythe to lead the department. And somebody who at that time had 0 corrections experience when she started. She had been around it. And one of the great things she did is she went around and asked a lot of questions. And I've actually been studying what she did because the results have been phenomenal. Now, most of you don't know this because the media is not going to talk about these things. And frankly, nobody's really paying a lot of attention to it until it's budget time or until it's, something where we look or there's a lawsuit or the state loses money. You sit there and go, okay, well, how do we not do that? Well, I'm going to tell you, Ann Precythe has been I'm telling you, Missouri, whether you know it or not, is an example of where corrections is going in this country. And I've been using that example a lot as I travel the country. You've got now, even in the room now, you have Trevor Foley, who is your new director, who worked with Ann. You've got other leadership. In fact, if you work or have worked in the Missouri Department of Corrections and you're here today, can you please stand? Absolutely. Too often, because people don't understand corrections, they also don't understand and appreciate the people that work in it. It's very easy to appreciate law enforcement. We look and we see the danger that they do every day. They interact for a very short time with many of these criminals, but it's a very dangerous time. While what we do is we incarcerate and we take those individuals that law enforcement deals with, and then we put them all together, and it's corrections that deals with them every day and every night, all the time. And I tell you, it's a very, very difficult job that most wouldn't understand. A lot of them get it wrong. A lot of the states get it wrong. But I tell you, you should be very encouraged and excited what's going on in this state. So I'm going to just cover three things with you this morning to just give you something to think about. First, I've learned that many people judge those like me or others based on their own experiences, right? You only understand and know the family you grow up in. How many of you had a dad that would spank that tail real good if you got out of line? How many? Okay, and I'm a father of four. My wife and I have been married over 28 years. I have 3 boys and 1 girl, and many a times I think, what would their life be like if I wasn't on them and challenging them and disciplining them? Now, Mom thinks I do it too much sometimes, but I have my own motivations, right? When you spend time in prison, you don't want your kids to be able to go there. But what I've learned is, number one, different backgrounds have different outcomes. It's just a fact. I use this analogy. How many of you are dog lovers? Any dog lovers are in the house? So when you have a litter of puppies, I mean, it's never a time that they're more cuter than that time, right? You got a litter of puppies, you're over there picking out which one, trying to stay away from the runt a little bit, but you're looking and they're all loving and they're all adorable. And then they go to different houses. And one house will take that puppy and they will love on it, and the kids are feeding it and they're paying attention to it. Most of them not cleaning up the dog poop like they told their parents they would if they got a dog, right? But they're encouraged, and that dog is warm and it's fed. But yet another dog in that same litter goes to a different home. That dog is tied up to a chain outside. It may not have had a lot of attention paid to it, or even worse, maybe abuse. Maybe an owner mistreated that dog. And as that dog goes, that's that dog if you walk up to, it might bite you. It might alert you even ahead of time, stay away from me. That dog can have scars, and its body tells the difficulty that it has went through. Yet, same family, same DNA, different homes. People, I've learned, it's a lot like that. When I was in prison, I had the benefit of being with executives and professionals. They just didn't pay taxes, or they fraud. There's other things that they did. But it was there that this young punk drug dealing kid interacted with these executives. And one of the things that I noticed when I would go to the visiting room is their whole families would show up. Even their moms and dads and their kids and all of that. And their visiting experience was much different. A long time when I would grow up, I would always look, and it was always us and them. Does that make sense? It was kind of those of us without and those with. If you're not careful, what it becomes is it's the smart ones and the not so smart ones. You know what I learned in prison? As I sat around these highly educated, some very, very wealthy business leaders or business people, I learned they're not that damn smart. And what I would at least say is not that much smarter than me. Not that I'm smart, but as you live with people, you get to really know people, right? And I realized, wait a minute, there's not so much difference of what I thought it was. And I began to remove the impossibilities in my mind. And then I started reading. I would pick up a book, and as you saw from the video, Many times it was a struggle for me because I hadn't read a lot. I wasn't very educated. I did struggle with the concepts, but fortunately, some of those men in there invested in me. There was a CEO that after talking about business and those things, he said, look, you don't know enough about accounting for me to talk business to. I was devastated. 3 days later, a mail call came and I had a book from his wife, Accounting 101. And he would sit there and go over it with me. A banker. I didn't understand banking. In fact, if some of you are old enough, in the old days, banks didn't communicate with each other. So you just had checks. You just used all of them you wanted, and when you were done, you just moved to another bank. That was my idea of financial stewardship. And you could never go back to that bank, but you could go to a new one and get a new checkbook. And yet there was somebody that sat down and talked to me about finance and banking and credit. It was because of that person, that banker, that I came out with a financial plan. And in fact, I'll tell you the one when I go into prisons that I like to talk about the most is the pilot that I met. How many pilots are in here? Okay, so you see how few are in this room. I can tell you there were none in my neighborhood growing up, okay? But I met a pilot in prison. And I began to talk to him. Ended up getting a book, and everybody laughed because they knew I was indigent. So in prison, somebody's indigent if they take their clothes. I couldn't afford what they call the good soap powder. So we would take the government bar of soap, you put it in a sock, you crush it in a door, and you throw that in with your laundry, and you wash it. Now, you could always tell that, people, because your clothes would about stand up on their own. So that made a lot of people laugh and mock me because they knew I was indigent. So they would see me studying the stock market or talking about learning how to fly or studying real estate, and they would just make jokes. Come on, man. You're just like us. You're a convicted felon. Nobody's giving you a chance. You're going to be nothing. And unfortunately, I always say there was plenty of staff members that told me that at the time, but I heard it more from the very people that I was in prison with than them. There's one of my favorite people when I go in, the people that I look at when I go into prisons, and I spend a lot of time now in prisons, is I look for the person that is saying, don't come talk to me. If I can see good face tattoos and things like that, it's my favorite people to go talk to. You know why? Because they're putting those on there for a reason. They're that abused dog, many times just barking at you, telling you, you should be scared of me. Stay away from me. You're not going to like me. I'm going to hurt you. Stay away. Many of those I have found spend enough time, just like those people. Anybody work at a pound here by any chance, or anybody around abused animals? I love these people because they just sit there and love those animals back. That animal that starts biting and eventually starts earning the trust and then ends up being restored. Frankly, that's the role of corrections in our communities. Number 2, hurt people hurt people. It's just a fact. Many of us have been through things in our lives that maybe you remember a time where you were hurt and you were going through something, you were struggling, and maybe that nice person talked to you and you bit back. Hurt people hurt people. And when I spend time in prison, I get to experience and hear some of the most difficult stories of life. And I'm not saying there's nobody in there that didn't have a good life and then ended up ruining that. But that's not often the case. Generally, they're challenged at a different level. And finally, the third thing that I want to share with you. If we ask ourselves, why should we care about corrections? Why should we care about those people that violate our society, those people just like me, the ones that were breaking in your cars, when I was stealing your purses, when I was stealing things out of cars? Why should you care about somebody like me? Well, today we're at a prayer breakfast. We're hearing and talking about faith. And can I just tell you, finally, if we love God, we have to care. We can't say that we love God and we don't love people. You know, it surprises people when they hear me say that I'm actually a very tough on crime advocate. They assume when they meet me and that I've been in prison that I think you should just be weak on crime and oh my gosh, you know, I mean, I hear the craziness of abolishing prisons and abolishing police. That I can tell you there's nobody even from the community I grew up in that thinks that's a good idea. Yet you have some people portray these messages. In fact, I believe we should be very swift, sometimes even swifter with justice than we are. However, here's where I would challenge you. Here's where we get it wrong. It's the intentionality that we then, when we take these people, it's the intentionality that we must have when we have them in rehabilitating them and getting them prepared to get out. Does that make sense? I think as we go, I needed to be separated from society. If you would have left me out there longer, I would have continued to do the same thing. We'd be foolish to think that it wouldn't happen that way. Where we miss as society is the real intentionality of taking those people. You know, we call it corrections, the Department of Corrections, for a reason. It's supposed to correct behavior. I often say what should keep corrections up late at night is the 95% of people that are in there now that are going to be our neighbors again one day. That's where our focus should be. And so I'm again very intentional and in that, and this is what I work on. So I'm going to give you a scripture that many times we don't talk about because it's reflective of something we don't understand. The Bible says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink, and I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came and visited me.' And the righteous will answer and say, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you stranger and invite you in, or needed clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison or go to visit you?' Now catch this part. This is what he said. The king will reply, 'Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me.'" You know, I spend, as I told you, a lot of time in prisons, and I spend a lot of time with some very hardened criminals, people that have done things, and frankly, many that have lost their right to ever be in society with us again. And I do believe that happens. But I have watched so many turn their life around. So many that have changed. But can I tell you, I have never met one person, including myself, that has ever changed without the interaction of somebody else. Never. Whether it was a chaplain, whether it was a volunteer, whether it was a family member that decided to go and visit, maybe a fellow inmate that had also got into a good place that is now helping others. I know former gang members that are going and negotiating with gang leaders right now, pulling people out of the gangs. Maybe it was a correctional officer that took that time to look at them and talk with them. Maybe it was a counselor inside of the prison. But I have never, ever, ever, ever seen somebody's life change without the impact of somebody else. One of my favorite things about being with Governor is hearing the different stories of different people that he's known, that he's interacted with. Even last night as we were having dinner, talking about the pastry chef at the mansion who came through prison and is now employed working. And I can tell you the carrot cake was amazing. Y'all might as well get ready. I think he's going to weigh about 400 pounds by by the end of this. I have a book coming out. I'm not pushing the book. I have a book coming out here in a few months. And in that book, you will see where I highlight so many of the people along the way that invested in me when it looked like I was uninvestable. I didn't have the tattoos on my face, but I can tell you I sure had the attitude that said, stay away. I'd bite you if you got close. I had a mentality that this life was just different, and most of the people, nobody understood me, nobody understood what I went through. And it was just easier to be tougher and harder and just keep you away. But there were some people that looked past that. There were some people that loved me in spite of me, that invested in me along the way. And when I think of the title of this, Someone by My Side, man, I tell you, I wrote a book full of those people that have been by my side and invested in me. You know, since my time of being released, God has continued to just bless me, beat me with a blessing stick. I was one of the 73 pardoned by President Donald Trump on his last day in office. And thank God he's back in. And I've been able to now have the honor to work with several governors. Governor of my state, Bill Lee, who did prison ministry for 25 years before becoming governor. I work in Florida, I work in Texas, and have just had the honor and privilege. God continues, my wife and I all the time, even just walking up to Governor Claudia's new house, we just look and reflect and we go, wow, look at you, Lord. So I'll leave you this final scripture, one that I remember very well. The Bible says he'll use the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And that's what God has done with me. He took this nobody, this nothing, that didn't deserve it, didn't earn it, didn't even understand it. And he found me where I was at. And he surrounded me with people along my path. And he's given me the life that I have today. And that's why I stand always talking about his goodness, his mercy, and his grace. You know, God has no hands without yours. He has no feet without yours, and he has no mouth without yours. My encouragement to you is find somebody that you wouldn't normally invest in. Get out of your comfort zone. Call Director Foley and say, hey, I want to go tour a prison. I want to learn more about it. I want to volunteer. I want to have a role. Or open up to these guys coming out and these girls. So many employers in here. Give it a chance. It's not easy. Many of them I've hired a ton of them. Many of them have never even had a job before. I have to walk through with them. But can I tell you, the company that I sold is now being ran by a gentleman that did 8 years in prison. I hired him 15 years ago. I paid him $6 an hour to start. And today he makes more money than most of us in here. And he's running the entire organization that I sold for the guy that bought it. And so with God, all things are possible. Thank you for your time this morning, and I appreciate the invitation to be with you.